Let's talk about diet a little bit. Is the diet that we've grown up hearing about still the one that's considered heart healthy, or are there some changes to what we
Probably
know?
the best recently published data looking at diet was with the Mediterranean diet. And you probably saw the announcement on that, a well-done trial. And they looked at two different variations of the Mediterranean diet. One was supplemented with extra virgin olive oil. The other was supplemented with more nuts. And they compared it to a diet that was less concentrated in fat. And what they showed was the Mediterranean diet significantly reduced the risk of stroke. The headlines actually read, well, the Mediterranean diet reduced the risk of heart attack. When you look at the actual study in detail, there was a trend toward reducing the heart attack risk with the Mediterranean diet, but it was stroke, that's where it was very significant. When you lump the stroke together with the heart attack and with cardiovascular mortality, it was significant. But that significance was driven by the stroke reduction, and the variation of the Mediterranean diet that reduced the stroke risk almost 50% was the arm that had the extra nuts. Now, the extra virgin olive oil also reduced stroke risk, but not as much. It was significant, but not as much as the one with nuts. But in that study, it's very interesting that there was no caloric restriction in any of the three dietary arms. So what also really didn't make the news, which we find extremely interesting, is none of the three diets varied in terms of their significance in keeping you alive. So all causes of death, it didn't matter. None of these diets reduced longevity. And we would argue the reason they didn't reduce longevity is, to do that, you have to throw in caloric restriction. You know, the data really is pretty solid out there. If you've got a BMI between 20 and 25, you're going to live longer. If it goes above 25 or below 20, you're not going to live as long. So it's an interesting distinction, because what we concentrate on and what we feel like we're experts in is we call arteriology.